In this video, I want to explore why was Cornwall rebranded, what was the reasons behind it. Cornwall is the second most deprived county after Durham. It has the lowest weekly wage in the UK, which was £329.40 in 2005. Compare that to Surrey, which has £500 on average per week. There's a big difference. And Surrey, just for those who don't know, is another rural area. So why did this happen? Well, there was a decline in the primary industry. So just like with the docks, there was a decline in, there's containerization took place, and all the manufacturing firms for sugar and oil brewery and etc. They died down. Primary industry died down in Cornwall post 1970s. Now there was 4 aspects of primary industry which died down: agriculture, fishing, mining and quarrying. Agriculture was one of the biggest sectors to die down. One of the reasons was, I'll give you an easy example to get your head around this. In the UK, if you want to produce milk, it's minimum 21p. If you import it from other EU countries, it's 14p. Now that seems like, what is that, a 7p difference? But you multiply that on millions and millions for supermarkets and stores, and that does equate to millions of pounds. There's also a decrease in EU subsidies because EU and the national subsidies to farming areas, because the thing is, right, the EU, just like with fishing, I was going to tell you, they locate certain places to be responsible for fishing. So they give subsidies there, and if you're not in that location, then you don't have the cost to keep prices low and fish. The same way with agriculture, there are other areas which are promoted for farming and stuff, and Cornwall is not one of them. So agriculture died down, leaving in many jobs. There was labour immobility because these people who had been doing work all their life, on the farm and stuff, they don't have the skills to use a computer. Well, they might, but they're not going to be experts to go and work in, let's say, top advertising agencies and get that job, are they? Fishing, actually let me just finish off on farming then. Their income fell sharply between 1973 and 2003. It was 80,000 in 1995 and it was 2,500 in 2002. That gives you an idea of how large it fell. And one of the reasons was that supermarkets, they have so much power now. In the past, we had loads of local shops. They would farm themselves, or they would buy off farmers. And if they tried to set a price which is too low, farmers would simply say no and go to the other local shop. There's about 5 basically supermarkets in today's day. Let's say Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Asda, Tesco. There's about 4 or 5 or maybe more which are the main ones, and they will demand a low price from you, and if you can't produce at that low price, then you're out of the industry. So that's how it works now, because supermarkets have a lot of power, particularly because they mainly are TNCs now. Fishing, so as I said, the EU allocates certain areas to do fishing, and also in the past there had been overfishing, so there's decreased supply of fish. Migration took place, both primary industry, well, not that much in farming, but particularly with fishing. The fishermen and women, they migrated to other places, and many farmers did too, in search of work. This left Cornwall with a less working population, because all the people who were doing the work before, they left to find work somewhere else, and that helped to make the place more derelict. Now, the mining industry was one of the biggest industries in Cornwall. They have tin and china, clay, hills and all these kind of things, but overseas competition made it just too expensive, just like with farming, so many of these had to shut down. And the UK has a strong pound, so that meant that overseas countries, they found it hard to purchase from the UK, and because there was not much demand, profits weren't coming in, and then tin mines such as Griever mine, they shut down. Simple. Quarrying, this is more different. This is more like a market failure. What happened is technology, automation came in. It was so much more cheaper than to have people working, so they were replaced by computers. That's how the jobs in that sector died down. another reason is not just that people were migrating away, was the second homes. The people who were buying houses in Cornwall tend to be the people who probably worked in the city or whatever, were quite rich. They saw potential in Cornwall houses and they bought it, kept it as a second home because Cornwall has a nice coast, come for the weekend or something. Not like holidays, because obviously cheap international holidays when the people went there, but maybe for the weekend they would come to Cornwall and stay there. And this was such a big problem that in the whole of the UK, 5.6% of second homes were found in Cornwall. It became like a ghost town. Now, because there's demand, especially particularly people who were buying these houses were quite rich, not like in Cornwall where the employment was going down, so people didn't have that much money. This raised house prices to go up. Now, because house prices rise, local tensions came as well, because locals now, they could not afford to buy any of the houses because they were just too expensive. And then it was turning into a ghost town, especially as these locals said we should leave and just find homes somewhere else, too expensive. And then tensions are never good because these can end up in riots, fights, deaths. We don't want to have any of this. As I said, cheaper holidays abroad. The main holidays people went abroad for, because with things like EasyJet and Ryanair, now even the mass markets, they go abroad on holiday. Our world has shrunk. It's very globally connected so well now. So that's another thing. And it's the location of Cornwall itself. It's on the southwest. So I won't do the video because it's opposite. But it's on the peninsula of southwest. It's very periphery location. It's not in the economic core, whereas Surrey I think is in the economic core, somewhere near it, because people live there and they commute to London to work. You can't commute from Cornwall to London to work. It's 4 to 6 hours. Can you imagine altogether 8 to 12 hours travelling? Nobody wants to do it. It's crazy. So it's very, very far from the economic core. And this is a geographical theory, the core and periphery location. And in here it says that as you move away from the core, the places become more derelict because people move or they work and they spend money in the centre where everything is happening. Not in the cores, and Cornwall is one of the furthest places I would say from the economic core. That's why in Surrey people have average weekly income of £500, in Cornwall they have 329.40 pence. That is the reason. And infrastructure also makes a difference, because this can include things like access to a place. Now, okay, they've expanded Newquay Airport as part of the regeneration process, but still from the centre of Cornwall it's about 12 miles to the airport and 27 miles to a ferry, so they are quite far away. Infrastructure also means the services people have. These are one of the things we look at in field work. How close are people to services? Well, here's a few surprising facts. In Cornwall, 39% of the households are 2 kilometres away from a cash point, and 1 in 5 households are over 2 kilometres away for a post office. Now, for something like a post office, you might go, what's the importance of that? Well, online commerce is a coming up business. It's a great way of economically developing a place, as we're looking when I'm in my other video and I look at how is Cornwall being rebranded. IT, broadband, internet shopping, these are all important, and sometimes people are not home or they want to return. They have to travel to a post office to sort out their returns and all that. So being that far away, it's not good, and especially if you want people get a job as a postman, you want to live close by it. Another reason is Cornwall has seasonal tourism. Small businesses do not survive and in these seasonal tourism, because they never break in the actual season. They don't make enough money to last them the whole year. So only large businesses do. But the downside to having large businesses is that when they make profit, only 31% stays in Cornwall and the rest goes elsewhere, because they are large businesses. They're probably global, like Hilton and all that. Not much of the money will be spent in Cornwall. And with seasonal tourism, the employment created is only short-term, permanent, low paid. It's not particularly a long-term good way. Cornwall also has the highest percentage of derelict land, so you can understand it's not even become environmentally nice to look at. Like before, they had the China clay hill mines, and then nice to look at, but now they don't. Population is another big problem. They attract a lot of elderly, so there's a lot of inward migration of the elderly. Young people are fleeing. They have a big problem of brain drain, and the state are doing their very best to sort this. They've even kept council toe extremely low to encourage spending and young people to come here. It doesn't seem to be working, and many of these old people, there's no point in saying they'll spend the grey pound because they rely on the state benefit, state pensions. So what are they spending the state's money? So it's not particularly help. Many of them rely and don't have enough money, and they rely on, you know, winter fuels and all this stuff. Anyways, so that's why Cornwall became derelict. I hope that video helped. And in my next video, find the strategies used for Cornwall to rebound. Thank you.